My name is Marilyn Ross. I stand alone by Grandpa Henry's casket, the last mourner at Silverton Cemetery. The late afternoon light has that thin, pewter sheen that makes every breath look like a whisper. My fingers trace the rough grain of the plain wooden box. In my other hand, a small jar of honey turns the light to liquid gold. Some inheritances aren't measured in dollars and cents, I murmur, and a cool breeze steals the words, carrying them over the clipped grass and the dark yews. For a heartbeat, I taste 8 years old again, knees knocking the workbench, Grandpa laughing as he let me dip a finger into fresh honeycomb, smoke and wax and sunlight settling into my hair. By the time I reach the attorney's office, the day has dulled into the smell of leather and old paper. Mr. Livingston's mahogany desk sits between us, like a small country with strict borders. Mom adjusts her pearls, the way she does when she wants to look composed. Dad tugs at a collar that suddenly seems too starched. Delia keeps her eyes on her phone as if the screen might mint money at any second. Mr. Livingston clears his throat. Regarding the property known as Honey Ridge Farm, main residence, outbuildings, and 2.5 acres in Silverton. Dad cuts in, the same dismissive tone he's used about the place for decades. Just tell us what it's worth so we can sell. Delia glances up, bored already. Agreed. Liquidate and distribute. Actually, Mr. Livingston says, peering over his glasses, your father was quite specific. The property is to be held jointly unless one member wishes to purchase the other's shares. Mom sighs as if the room itself has let her down. Who would want a derelict bee farm? The county assessment sits on the desk. About $95,000. Delia snorts. Who would pay that for a collapsing farmhouse and dead boxes? Something old and tender tightens in me. The same small twist I felt when the 5th grade science fair ribbon went to me. But the applause drifted toward Delia anyway, when my sensible administrative job earned nods, while her promotions won toasts. I have spent 6 years packing leftovers into brown bags, saying no to vacations, learning that silence can be a vault. I hear myself say it before I plan it. I'll buy it. 3 heads swing toward me. Dad squints. You'll what? Your shares, I answer. 62,000 over 3 years. Delia's laugh is bright and mean. With what? Your paycheck covers rent if you squint. Mom pats my hand as if I've confused a hobby with a mortgage. Honey, beekeeping is specialized. Farming is unforgiving. I slide a bank statement across the desk. 25,000 down today. The rest in monthly installments. We can sign now. The room's air changes shape. Dad picks up the paper, reading the balance twice, then again. Where did you get this? I saved it, I say, meeting his eyes. Every paycheck, for 6 years. Delia flicks the page back as if it might sting. You'll be foreclosed in a year. We won't bail you out. Then you have nothing to lose by signing. Mr. Livingston's pen looks almost happy in his hand. An hour later, I step into rain, clutching the folder of executed paperwork. I don't open the umbrella. Cold drops soak my blouse, but the shock feels honest. I have chosen something that looks like ruin to every person who raised me. It feels like stepping through my own skin. The second-hand blue Chevy groans up the rutted drive to Honey Ridge, rattling like a box of loose nails. The farmhouse is all peeled paint and sagging porch, blackberry brambles swallowing the steps. What have I done? I whisper. But I already know. The answer lives in the way my boots crunch through broken glass and gravel toward the shed behind the house, where the padlock is new, Grandpa's last act of order. The key sticks and then turns, and the smell hits me. Beeswax and wood, sweet and earthy. Dust motes drift like sleep in the angled light. Tools hang in tidy rows. A leather-bound book sits at center. Honey Ridge Journal, 1974-2018. I open to neat handwriting. Colonies tracked, weather, yields, decades of patience. I thought the Collins family sold this place years ago. I jump, dropping the journal. Mrs. Jenkins stands in the doorway, silver hair pulled ruthlessly back, eyes sharp as nettles. I'm Marilyn, Henry's granddaughter. I know who you are, she says, stepping in to touch the journal's worn edge. Quiet kid, always asking Henry proper questions. Her gaze flicks toward the fields. Your father looked like he swallowed a lemon at the funeral. Man never understood what Henry built. I don't know the first thing about beekeeping, I admit, the words dry as dust in my mouth. But I couldn't let it go to developers. She studies me for a long beat. Find Thomas Hale, she says at last. Right hand to Henry for 20 years. Ornery old cuss, knows more about bees than books do. Works part-time at Peterson's Hardware. At the door, she pauses. Henry believed patience outlasts opinion. The line sinks into the shed like a nail. Peterson smells like lumber and summers that already happened. I spot him explaining wood glue to a customer, lean, weathered, baseball cap pulled low, hands as precise as a clockmaker's. When he finishes, I step forward. Mr. Hale, I'm Marilyn Ross. Henry was my grandfather. He stiffens. Colin's family never cared about those bees, he says, flat as gravel. 20 years of work, abandoned like yesterday's paper. I bought the farm, I say, the words unfamiliar and right all at once. From my parents and sister. He snorts. Good luck with that, city girl. I reach into my bag and pull out the journal. A slip of paper flutters free, shaky handwriting, I would know by feel. Thomas knows the secret. Trust him with Honey Ridge. Thomas takes the note. His rough thumb traces the letters as if they're a map. The edges of his face soften. Not much, but enough. He looks at me as if he's measuring a hive's weight by hand. You serious about this? He asks. Not just flipping a memory for cash? I put down my life savings, I say plainly. I have 13,000 left, a farm I don't know how to run, and a family waiting for me to fail. He doesn't answer. He watches me the way bees watch the entrance. Still, all attention. The store's bell jingles as someone leaves. Sawdust floats in a sun knife cutting the counter. I realize I am holding my breath. At last, he nods once, like we've agreed on something quiet. Tomorrow, he says. Dawn. We'll walk the land. He taps the slip of paper. Henry didn't write easy. Back in the truck, I set the journal on the passenger seat, spine out, unread pages pressing against possibility. Outside, clouds stack purple over the valley, and in the rearview mirror, the farmhouse looks like a stubborn story refusing to end where everyone expected. I turn the key, and the engine coughs awake. Something tiny taps against the driver's side glass. A single honeybee hovers there, legs dusted in wind-blown pollen, as if it has mistaken my window for sky. For a breath, it hangs bright and impossible, catching the last light. Then it veers away toward the dark line of trees and the silence that keeps its own counsel. I rest my palms on the wheel. We'll make it, I tell the empty cab, the locked journal, the old blue truck that will need more miracles than oil. I can still hear Delia's voice. Liquidate, distribute, like a slogan cut loose from meaning. Grandpa's shed, with its tidy tools and jars, arranged like quiet soldiers, sits behind my eyelids each time I blink. I picture Thomas's face as he read the note, the way a door swung open without a sound. I think about money, how my family talks about it, how bees make theirs, one trip at a time. I think about credit, the kind you take versus the kind you earn. I think about patience, the slow kind that builds comb and seasons and lives. Tomorrow at dawn, we'll walk the land. Tonight, I will keep the journal closed. The engine hums like a kind of vow as I pull onto the road. My phone lights up with a text from an unknown number. Heard you bought the ghost farm. Brave or foolish? I don't answer. Some things don't need an audience yet. Ahead, the last strip of sky looks like a smear of honey on slate. I drive toward it, and the fields fall away on either side, dark and waiting, holding their breath with me until morning. The morning breaks thin and cold. Mist curls low over the fields, softening the edges of everything. I spot Thomas's truck already parked by the fence line when I pull up. He stands there with a thermos in hand, staring toward the sagging farmhouse, as if it's an opponent he's agreed to face one more time. Thought you said dawn, he grumbles when I step out. It is dawn, he grunts, eyes flicking to my boots. City shoes won't last a week. They'll last today. We walk the property in silence. The air tastes like wet metal and pine sap. Thomas moves with the cautious precision of someone who knows every rut and root. He jots notes in a battered pad, muttering things I barely catch. Frames warped, brood comb useless, soil might still breathe. When we stop by a collapsed shed, he pries a board free and holds it up to the light. Rot's slow here. That's good. I don't have skills, I tell him. Just determination and what's left of my savings. That'll last about 2 months, he says. You offering to pay me? 15 an hour. No favors. Fair wage. We rebuild together or not at all. He studies me a long time. Bees know when someone's lying, he says finally. They sense intention. Henry used to say that. Then I hope they like me. Hope's cheap, he mutters, but there's a flicker of approval in his eyes. He points toward a distant oak tree where something dark clings to the trunk. See that? Wild swarm. Been there since Henry's last season. I follow him through tangled grass. The low hum builds until it's all around us. Alive, electric. Your grandfather's bees never really left, Thomas says quietly. They've been waiting. It's the first time I've heard anything gentle in his voice. Over the next weeks, we clear brush, mend fences, and pry open rusted equipment. I learn the sting of splinters, the language of smoke, how to move slowly enough that the bees read calm instead of threat. My palms toughen, my savings shrink. The bank officer doesn't even pretend to read my proposal. Too risky, he says, already glancing at his watch. Back at the farmhouse, I tack a calendar to the wall. 10 months until my first payment to the family is due. I circle the date in red. Delia's texts start that night. Delia, given up yet? Delia, sell now and salvage something. Delia, Mom says you look tired in your posts. You okay? I don't reply. Thomas arrives every morning at 7 sharp. He never compliments, never complains. When I fumble the smoker, he says, too much smoke kills as sure as too little. When I hesitate near a hive, he says, they smell fear like gasoline. But one afternoon, as we find a stack of old hive frames still intact beneath a tarp, he gives a small nod. Good wood. Henry built to last. We uncover a hidden compartment behind a loose board in the shed. Inside, a box of papers bound with string. Queen breeding records. Thomas's hands tremble when he flips through them. Disease resistance, he whispers. Henry was breeding for it decades before anyone cared. That night, I light a candle in the farmhouse kitchen. The roof leaks, the electricity's dead, but the spring water runs clear. I write in my own notebook, copying lines from Grandpa's journal. Patience outlasts ridicule. I don't know if I believe it yet, but I write it anyway. By midsummer, we've rebuilt 3 hives, then 5. The sound of bees fills the property again. The first harvest drips golden through cheesecloth. The smell is sunlight itself. You'll get maybe 8 jars from this, Thomas says. It's a start. It's proof, he corrects. When the mail comes, it's another rejection. Loan denied again. My hands shake as I slit the envelope. Thomas watches but doesn't speak. I paste on a smile. Guess the bees will just have to work overtime. He snorts. They already do. That night, I sit on the porch, watching fireflies flicker over the grass. My phone buzzes with another message from Delia. Ready to sell? Beneath it, a photo. My family at a champagne dinner. The caption reads, Celebrating Delia's Financial Innovation Award. I close the screen before the sting fully lands. 2 days later, the reporter from Oregon Life and Farm shows up unannounced. Your neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, told me about your project, she says, wide smile, hiding curiosity. Mind if I take a few photos? She walks the rows with us, snapping shots of the hives, the restored shed, Thomas teaching me to use a frame grip. This is beautiful, she murmurs. You're bringing something back. The article runs on Sunday. Granddaughter revives Oregon's forgotten bee farm. Orders flood in, nearly $10,000 in a month. I stay up labeling jars, handwriting notes for each shipment. You're officially a business owner, Thomas says, handing me coffee at sunrise. For the first time, I believe it. Then the television clip airs. I'm halfway through checking hive entrances when I hear Delia's voice from the farmhouse window. Bright, polished, confident. As co-founder of Honey Ridge Farm, she tells the morning show host, our family's vision combines tradition with sustainability. The jar slips from my hand, honey pooling like amber glass at my feet. Thomas finds me standing there frozen. I show him the clip on my phone. His jaw tightens. Some people can't build, he says, so they steal the shine from those who can. The next day, a package arrives. Business cards. Delia Ross, CEO, Honey Ridge Farms. My name nowhere. We could call her out, Thomas says, publicly. Make sure people know. No, I say slowly. Let the work speak for itself. He raises an eyebrow. You think silence wins wars? Not silence, I answer. Proof. That evening, I call our printer. The new labels arrive 3 days later, same design, but now the words beneath the logo read, Independent, family-free ownership since 1974. Thomas laughs when he sees them. First laugh I've heard from him. Henry would have liked that kind of quiet rebellion. We spend the next week preparing for the Harvest Festival, polishing jars, sanding the old Honey Ridge sign until the letters gleam. My bank account balance hovers near empty, but I don't care. The festival will decide everything. The night before, rain whispers against the tin roof as I handwrite each label. My fingers ache. My heartbeat matches the rhythm of the storm. I seal every jar with a dot of beeswax, Grandpa's old trick for good luck. When I finish, I blow out the candle and look around the kitchen. The house smells of wood polish, wax, and courage. I picture Delia's television smile, the one that says she always wins. I whisper into the dark, let's see whose story holds. Outside, the hives hum, oblivious to family politics, to money, to pride. Their steady sound fills the night like a promise. Tomorrow, everything changes. The morning of the Harvest Festival dawns clear, bright, and impossibly crisp. The air tastes like apples and wood smoke, and the fields shimmer with the first gold of autumn. By the time we roll up to the fairgrounds, the place is already buzzing. Vendors unloading crates of jams, cider, and flowers, kids dragging hay bales, and banners snapping in the wind. Our booth looks modest compared to the others. Weathered wood table, linen cloth, honey jars gleaming in neat rows. Thomas hangs the freshly polished Honey Ridge sign, letters catching the sunlight. Not bad, he says, stepping back. For 2 people, everyone expected to fail. 3, I correct softly. You, me, and Grandpa. He tips his hat. Then let's make him proud. As the gates open, the crowd swells. Curious faces, familiar neighbors, and strangers drawn by the amber shine of our jars. A reporter from the Silverton Record stops at our booth. Can you tell us about your family business revival? Before I can answer, Thomas slides a jar toward her. Taste first, words later. She dips a wooden stick, tastes, and her eyes widen. This is remarkable, light and complex. Heritage strain, Thomas explains. Started in 1974, local nectar, local patience. The line builds fast. I manage sales while he demonstrates extraction methods. The steady hum of conversation feels almost like the hive itself, order within chaos. For once, the rhythm of work feels pure. Then I see them. Mom's pearls, Dad's silver hair, Delia's designer sunglasses. They hover at the edge of the crowd, scanning the booth. Delia strides forward first, her confidence slicing through the air. Sorry, coming through, she says, slipping between customers. She plants herself beside me and flashes a practiced smile at a couple holding sample spoons. Delia Ross, she says sweetly. So glad you're enjoying our honey. The woman frowns. Oh, you work here too? Family business, Delia beams. I handle the operations side while my sister manages production. Thomas's expression doesn't change, but his jaw tightens. A festival coordinator approaches with a clipboard. We'd like to feature Honey Ridge on the local TV broadcast. Could we speak to the owner? Delia's mouth opens. Of course, The coordinator scans his notes. That would be Marilyn Ross? I lift my hand. Right here. For the first time, Delia's smile falters. The camera rolls as the reporter steps up, asking about the farm's revival. Thomas speaks calmly about the bees, about Henry's lineage of queens, about patience and weather and soil. I talk about rebuilding with local wood, about the value of keeping small traditions alive. Behind the lens, I catch Mom nudging Dad, both of them trying to look proud and calculating all at once. A customer points toward Delia. You must be proud of your sister. Her jaw tightens. We're all very invested in her success. The reporter thanks us, moves on. The cameraman lowers his rig. Thomas grins quietly. That went well, he says. Better than expected. Then the festival judge approaches, a man with a blue ribbon pinned to his chest. He tastes our sage blend, closes his eyes, and smiles. Best honey I've had all season. When he opens his eyes again, he pins the blue ribbon to our booth. Heritage Revival Award, Best Traditional Product and Presentation. The crowd applauds. Cameras flash. For a second, the world narrows to that sound, that color, that moment. Dad steps forward, clearing his throat. Congratulations, Marilyn. We didn't realize you'd made such progress. Thank you, I say, stacking jars, not meeting his eyes. Mom touches the ribbon lightly, as if proximity earns her credit. The booth looks charming. Behind them, Delia stands motionless, her face, a perfect portrait of practiced grace, cracking. I see every unsent apology and unspoken rivalry hovering between us like bees circling honey they can't reach. They linger, awkward, until the line of customers swells again. Thomas leans in. Family swarm, he mutters. Keep working. They'll move on when there's nothing left to claim. By late afternoon, we've sold nearly everything. Local shop owners slip me their cards, wanting to stock our honey. A woman from the Agricultural Extension Office says, "Your grandfather's queen breeding program has historic significance. We should talk about conservation funding." During a lull, Delia corners me behind the booth. Her voice is low, furious. "You could have included me." "I did. Every time you succeeded, I clapped the loudest." "That was different." "No," I say, steady now. "It was exactly the same." Thomas appears then, carrying a tray of samples. "Fresh batch just arrived," he announces to the waiting customers, then adds softly to me, "Family doesn't always share blood. Sometimes just purpose." Delia's lips thin. "You'll regret freezing us out." "Maybe," I say, "but at least the regret will be mine." She turns sharply, heels clicking against the fairground boards, disappearing into the crowd. I don't watch her go. That night, back at the farmhouse, I collapse into the chair by the window. The ribbon hangs from a nail above the desk, glowing faintly in the lamplight. Thomas pours us both a drink from an old flask. "To stubborn fools," he says. I raise my glass. "To patient ones." Rain starts again, tapping against the panes like 1,000 tiny feet. For once, I feel steady. Winter comes hard and early. By December, frost laces the fields, and the hives huddle under their tarps like sleeping animals. Thomas coughs more each week, brushing it off as a cold, then as the flu. When he finally agrees to see a doctor, the diagnosis lands heavy: pneumonia. The hospital smells of antiseptic and memory. Machines hum softly beside his bed. He looks smaller without the layers of flannel and sun. "You brought the good stuff," he rasps when he sees the jar in my hand, the last of our autumn wildflower honey. "The best we've made." He chuckles weakly. "Henry's favorite. January's hardest month for bees. Check ventilation holes, clear dead bees after snowfall." "I will." 2-to-1 syrup ratio, he continues. "Don't forget. And eat dinner, Marilyn. You forget when you work." I take notes even as my eyes blur. "Got it." He glances toward the window where snowflakes drift like ash. "Henry would be proud," he whispers, "of both of us." My phone buzzes. Mom, again. We're thinking of hosting Christmas at the farm. The property photographs beautifully in snow. I silence it. "Rest," I tell Thomas. He shakes his head slightly. "The colonies need you more than I do." 2 nights later, the storm hits. I drive through blinding snow, headlights carving tunnels of white. At the hives, drifts reach my knees. I clear entrances with gloved hands until they bleed through the fabric, brush ice from the ventilation holes, check wraps, whisper encouragement to creatures too small to hear me. By dawn, I can barely move. The hives stand secure. Thomas dies 2 weeks later, during the worst snowfall in 15 years. I hold his hand until the beeping stops. We hold the memorial in the workshop once the roads open. A handful of local beekeepers, Mrs. Jenkins, the hardware store owner. I hang Thomas's old hat beside Grandpa's photo. "Not everyone born family stays family," I whisper when everyone's gone. The workshop smells of wax and smoke again, but now it feels like an empty hive, order without sound. Spring creeps back into Honey Ridge like a shy apology. The snow recedes, revealing muddy fields and stubborn sprouts. I wake each morning to the same routine Thomas taught me. Check the hives, note the flight patterns, listen before touching anything. The silence he left behind still echoes in the corners of the workshop, but the bees keep moving, teaching me that grief, like honey, thickens with time but never really spoils. While sorting through his old desk, I find a folder I hadn't noticed before. Inside, pages of handwritten plans, new hive layouts, notes on queen breeding, expansion ideas, a list of contacts for an organic co-op, a sticky note attached, "When you're ready." I press the paper to my chest for a long moment, hearing his voice. Patience outlasts ridicule. By April, the fields hum again. The air smells of clover and possibility. I'm deep in inspection when tires crunch over the gravel drive. I straighten, wiping my hands on my jeans. A silver SUV and a sleek black car roll to a stop side by side. Mom, Dad, and Delia step out like they're arriving at a business meeting instead of my home. "There she is," Dad calls brightly, as if nothing has happened. "We're here to help with the business," Mom says, scanning the property with an appraiser's eye. Delia's been in touch with distributors in Portland. Delia steps forward, a folder clutched in manicured hands. "I've drafted a proposal. Ross Family Legacy Products. We can use the family angle for marketing. You'd stay on as creative director." "Creative director," I echo, "of the farm I rebuilt." "It's branding," she says. "Marilyn, don't be defensive. This could elevate the company." I lead them towards a workshop without replying. Inside, sunlight falls across the memorial wall, Grandpa's photograph and Thomas's hat hanging side by side. I stop before them. "Honey Ridge isn't a family business," I say quietly. "It's my promise, to the people who actually believed in it." Mom's voice softens into something between pity and frustration. "Sweetheart, you can't manage all this alone." "I'm not alone." I gesture toward the open door where the bees drift lazily in spring air. I never was. They follow my gaze, and for the first time, none of them have a response. Delia looks down, lips pressed tight. "You'll regret shutting us out." "Maybe, but at least the regret will be mine." They leave soon after. No slammed doors, no shouted accusations, just silence and the fading crunch of tires on gravel. I don't realize I'm shaking until I hear the bees again, their low, steady hum grounding me. Weeks pass. The first school group of the season arrives on a bright morning. Children press their noses to the observation hive glass, eyes wide as they watch the bees perform their intricate dances. "Who can tell me why bees dance?" I ask, smiling. A boy in a red cap raises his hand. "To tell the others where the flowers are." "Exactly," I say. "They share good news." Their laughter fills the shed. For the first time in months, I laugh with them. The program grows faster than I can keep up. Orders triple. A sustainable agriculture stewardship plaque arrives from the county. I hang it near the door where the afternoon light hits it just so. Mrs. Jenkins stops by with her usual blunt approval. "You've done Henry proud," she says, patting my arm before heading back to her truck. One afternoon, as the last tour bus pulls away, I spot a familiar silver sedan coming up the drive. My stomach tightens. Delia steps out alone, heels sinking into the soft earth. Her hair lifts in the breeze, and for once, she looks uncertain. "I saw the article in Agriculture Monthly," she says. "National Organic Certification. You're becoming a name." "I'm trying to become reliable," I say. "Names come later." She hesitates. "I should have supported you from the start." The words hang between us, fragile and real. I wait, letting silence stretch until it becomes honest. "I was jealous," she continues, eyes on the ground. "You built something real while I was busy chasing titles that don't matter." The admission lands softly, without the satisfaction I used to crave. I find myself feeling tired more than triumphant. "Want a tour?" I offer. We walk between the rows of hives, their white boxes gleaming in the sun. "These are Thomas's modifications," I tell her, showing the new ventilation system. "Cut winter losses by half." She nods slowly. "Mom and Dad never talk about him. It's like they want to erase anyone who proved them wrong." I smile faintly. He wouldn't have cared. We stop by the pond, where wildflowers now bend under the weight of bees. The air hums, alive and golden. "I was thinking," Delia says carefully, "maybe we could start over. No business, no proposals, just sisters." I look at her, really look, and for the first time in years, I see not the rival, but the girl who used to braid my hair before school. The part of me that still aches for family stirs, but I know better now. "Family isn't taken, Delia," I say gently. "It's earned." She nods, swallowing hard. "Fair enough." At the honey house, I hand her a small jar with a gold label. "Grandpa's sage blend," I explain. "We found his recipe in the old journals." She turns it in her hands, light glinting off the glass. "Will I ever be welcome here again?" "You're welcome as a visitor," I say honestly, not as an owner. Her eyes fill, but she nods. "That's fair." She heads back to her car, pausing once to look over the hives. "It's beautiful here," she says quietly. "You made it that way." After she drives off, I sit beneath the old apple tree. The bench beneath it is freshly sanded, the one Grandpa built decades ago. Thomas's straw hat hangs from a low branch above me, swaying gently in the wind. I pull out the conservation easement papers and set my pen to the final line, ensuring Honey Ridge will remain farmland forever. As I sign, the evening light spills through the blossoms, each petal glowing like honey. In the distance, the workshop windows catch the sunset, jars lined up inside, turning molten gold. I open Grandpa's journal to his last entry. Patience outlasts ridicule. Truth outlives lies. I whisper the words aloud, tasting their weight. The bees hum louder, their rhythm syncing with my heartbeat. For the first time, I understand what he meant. Not about farming, but about faith. People may forget your name, but if you build something honest, it remembers you. Across the field, the hives shimmer in the fading light, each one alive, each one singing its small, determined song. Grandpa planted, Thomas tended, I learned to believe. And under the blush of the setting sun as the bees return home, the jars in the window glow, ordinary glass transformed into vessels of liquid gold. Good things I've learned always find their way back.